Hi, this is Gene with Troy Built Models. This is part 2 of our 3-part session. We are going to go through our pre-flight checklist for the DJI S1000. So you should print this out from the website, follow along, make some changes, notes, then you go back to Word and make some changes, print it out so that's just the way you like it. Bring it with you every time you fly, make updates, laminate it so it doesn't get messed up, things like that. So let's go ahead and start off with point number 1. Okay, so the first thing we want to do, we've got ourselves a job, so what we want to do is we're going to pull up Google Maps. We're going to take a look at the area, and we're going to see if there's trees around, if there's a large populated area around. We want to see if there's any military air bases. We want to see if there's any kind of restricted, prohibited areas, airports, things of that nature. So, here we have pulled up one of the maps, and we're going to take a look around. We also, if we're real estate, they should mark the area that's the total inclusive area so that you make sure that you take imagery of the entire area and you don't miss something. Next, you want to make sure that your walkie-talkies are in good working order. You got fresh batteries or they're charged up. And also, if you're going to be within 3 to 5 miles of an airport, you have to communicate with air traffic control, make sure that they know you're operating in the area. So you need to have a walkie-talkie system to talk to air traffic control. You got to make sure that the batteries are charged. Next, we determine an emergency flight plan and alternate landing zones, avoiding power lines and obstacles. So when we get out to the field, we need to take a quick survey around and look for obstacles. So we're going to be flying at this house, getting imagery of this house here. So we're going to note that we've got quite a few trees. And take a mental note of that. We're going to check what the wind direction is. Right now, the wind direction is coming out of the west about 5 knots. It's not real important for a multi-rotor, but it's good to know which way the wind is coming. We're going to set a perimeter of 50 to 100 meters. You don't want any people around. If anything goes wrong and this crashes, or if it starts up and people get interested, they're going to walk over and start looking around. You don't want that. You want to keep people away. Okay, then we want to make sure that all the antennas that we have on the copter are pointing down and they're not interfering with anything. And then, of course, we want to snap these in place, and we want to remove our holders and straighten out our blades. Okay, so we have the copter fully assembled now. And now we're going to bring up our ground control station. We typically just have one monitor, but for today we're going to actually operate with 2 monitors. So we're just going to turn this on. This is going to be our receiver, and this receiver then is connected with a wire over to this monitor here so that we could see a little bit bigger image. Okay, the next thing we're going to do then is we're going to turn on the camera. It's a lot easier to do when the gimbal is not engaged. Very hard to get at the switches sometimes, depending on your camera. So the camera is now on. We can see the image on the back. We're going to remove the lens cover, and we're going to clean the lens. One thing we want to do is make sure that the SD card is installed, because if you forget to put in the SD card, it's going to ruin your whole day. So you usually will come up and tell you on the screen here whether your SD is not installed. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is install the battery or batteries onto the copter. And we showed you the Velcro trick before. And basically this slips up inside here. And snaps in place. Then we want to check the battery voltage. You need to have one of these battery checkers as a backup. And before you fly, even though you might have checked it just 2 minutes ago, I would check it, make sure you're putting the correct battery on there, and make sure your voltage is good. Hard to see in the sunlight, but we have good voltage here. Okay, we've got the batteries installed on the copter, but definitely do not plug them in yet. You'll always have to have your transmitters on first. We're going to do a CG check now, which is done fairly easily. Should have had it done already at the shop, but you can double check by lifting up in case there was some change. Just lift up on each of the sets of arms, and it should come off the ground very evenly. Next, we want to set up the copter so it's pointing directly at our subject. So in this case, we're going to be taking imagery of this home here. So we want to point the copter directly at the center of the image like we have here. This way, when I'm directed by the photographer to go forward or backwards or to the left or to the right, when I'm in course lock, it will be exactly the same way. Be sure to have it pointed in the correct direction. Next, we're going to turn on our two transmitters. We have our command and control transmitter, and we have our Zenmuse photography transmitter. And so we have it set up so all the switches are down, so you're less likely to make a mistake and have a switch in the wrong position when you go to start up. And same with both transmitters. So we're going to, got our switches in the right position, got our throttles down, and we're going to check, we are in the S1000, and then we have a voltage of 7.5, which is okay for this transmitter. With the Aurora 9, it's going to ask you about turning on the transmitter, and you can say yes. And this also says it's on Zenmuse, so we're okay there, and we have enough voltage. We have like 80% of our voltage, so we're good there. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to plug in our battery on our copter. Just like with a car, you always want to plug the negative in first, and then plug in the positive. You don't have to do calibration all the time, only if you move a long distance, like over 100 miles. So we'll do a calibration anyway, just to make sure that you know how to do it. First of all, we need to take a look at our LED light. See, we've got one red blink. And what we're going to do is switch from manual to GPS several times. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to get a blue light. Set our transmitter down where we're not going to step on it. And then we're going to rotate around until the blue light turns green. You see the green light. Next, we're going to put the camera side down, and we're going to rotate around. Always entertaining when you have a mic cord on. Okay, so now the LED has gone back to normal. If you're getting red flashes, white flashes, anything other than going back to kind of a normal setting, then you'll need to recalibrate. Now that we have calibrated, we want to cycle the battery so that we have set our forward position once again. To set the forward point again, you only need to unplug the red. Remember, always unplug red first and black second. And then we'll plug it back in again. And now it's going to record this direction as the home point. Once you've plugged the copter in again to reset it, then you need to check your LED. Your LED lights could be 3 flashes, which indicates you don't have satellite hookup yet. Then it'll go down to 2 red flashes, 1 red flash, and then off. So we do have GPS lock right now. You don't have to wait for GPS lock to continue with the checklist, but you need to check that. Okay, next we're going to check the copter voltage from the GCS, ground control station. You can see in the upper left-hand corner we have 24.7 volts, so we're close to what we need. In the upper right-hand corner we have the number of satellites, which is 8. We need at least 7 to have those red blinks go away on our LED on the copter itself. You can double check that we also have the height's about 0 and our distance from home is 0. All right, now we need to check that our lights are working properly on our LED and it's communicating with our transmitter properly. Okay, so first of all we want to get our LED so we can see it, and then we want to go into different modes here. So first of all we're going to go into attitude mode, and attitude mode is going to give us a double amber blip when we go, and that's with the throttle down. Then when we go into GPS mode, it's going to give us a double purple blip. Okay. When we go into course lock, it's going to give us purple and green. And home lock is the same, purple and green. Okay. Since we don't have any GPS red blinks, then everything's good to go. Okay, we also have to double check that the hover is going to work. So we're going to go from we're in attitude mode. We have the double amber blip, and we're going to go into half throttle, and that should be then hover mode. So we should get one blink. If we don't get one blink, then you've got to go do something with your setup. Same thing in center, you should have GPS, you should have one blink. If you move the stick up or down to ascend or descend or left or right, you should get double blips. But when everything's returning to center, it should be hovering and you should get a single blip. Okay, and so the next thing we want to do is turn our HDMI switch on. What this will do is we'll turn the video on the camera itself off on the back of the camera, and it will turn it on here on our monitor. Okay, then again we want to double check that everything's working with our camera. We want to check out freestyle, make sure that it's going to pivot like so, high rate, low rate. It's going to look up, look down. It's going to reset to the front, and it's going to point down if we want it to point down, and we can flip the shutter and we can hear it click. Okay, I've turned the HDMI off so that it's easier for us to see what's going on here, and the idea is we want to double check that we do have a good link with our IMU. So we're going to roll the copter, and you should see the horizon moving. If the horizon is not moving, you don't have a good link. You need to determine why that is. So if you do have a flight plan, now go to your ground control station and upload it. Next thing we need to do is make sure that our altitude is reading about 0. As you can see, because of all the time we're spending here and jostling things around, it's reading -5 meters. So what we're going to do is we're going to cycle the battery on the copter. And when we do that, that's going to reset, and we should have our altitude back to around 0 again. So that's it. It's ready to fly now. So that's the end of part 2. Stay tuned for part 3, and we're going to fly.